One of the things that our impact report showed last year, which was hugely vindicating, was that organizations would rank our talent as less good than their traditional talent at the point of interview.
Really?
And this was all to do with soft skills, right? So this was about spelling mistakes on CVs. This was about eye contact, what people wore, how they spoke.
And where do we learn those skills?
Exactly.
You don't know what they are, or,
If you've never had any exposure to people who could tell you how to do that, how would you possibly know what those things should be or what was expected of you? But at the end of internship, our interns were marked as good, if not better, than traditional talent.
Wow. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 10,000 Interns Podcast. This is a 6-part podcast series that marks and celebrates the incredible milestone of the 10,000 Interns Foundation, which is creating more than 10,000 paid internship opportunities for Black students and graduates across 35 sectors across the UK. This podcast series serves as an archive where we will be speaking to interns and alumni and other incredible individuals who've contributed towards the foundation's journey over the last 5 years. I'm your host, Seren Jones, and I am so excited to introduce to you the woman who has been leading this charity over the last 3 years, the Chief Executive Officer. Her name is Rebecca, and she is with me in the studio today.
I'm happy to be here.
I was going to ask, how does it feel to actually be on the podcast talking about the work that you're about to do?
Big exhale.
Massive exhale.
It's funny. I was talking to my team this morning before I came into the studio, and I was saying, this is it, guys. This is it. This is the kind of end of the chapter. And I've got to go and talk about it now. And yeah, I feel a lot of apprehension. I feel a lot of the end of an era.
Yeah, definitely. We know how the charity started, and we know kind of the origin story. So let's jump straight into your role and kind of when you came into the journey, right? So you came on board as new CEO in 2022. You were in your late 20s at the time. You were already establishing your own career and your own reputation in your field. How did the opportunity find you?
In the strange way, I think that all the best opportunities find you. Completely took me by surprise. I got a message on LinkedIn.
Oh, classic.
Yeah, exactly. Love LinkedIn. Shout out to LinkedIn, one of our partners for the last 5 years. I got a message on LinkedIn and someone sent me a kind of link to the website and said, have you heard about this? And I hadn't, because I was in the States during 2020, during the re-eruption of the BLM movement. I was in America. And so all of this kind of incredible 10,000 explosion had been happening UK side, and I'd missed a lot of it. And so I got this random message out of the blue and kind of dismissed it as, just another LinkedIn recruitment reach out. And then I sent the link to my girlfriend's WhatsApp group. And I said, do you guys know what this is? Have you heard about this 10,000 Black interns thing? And every single person that I spoke to knew what it was. It had just taken London, the capital, the city, completely by storm over the last 2 years prior to. And I've never wanted to be a CEO. That's never been, I never saw that as part of my journey. Perversely, I think that's probably what makes me a good CEO, is that I've never wanted this for myself. But the opportunity kind of, I wouldn't say it fell into my lap, but it came knocking and I answered.
So you're learning that this organization is a big deal and that it's got a name, right? But what was it about the foundation that made you think, okay, yeah, I'm actually going to give this a go? Like, yeah, I think I could be the right person to lead this.
I'll be honest, at first I was really apprehensive. And I dismissed it immediately, kind of out of hand. And, I think it's really easy to be cynical about diversity schemes. I think it's really easy to, especially in that time, this was kind of post 2020.
Right, yeah. George Floyd had just been killed.
Everyone was, it was all Black everything.
Yeah.
Right. And everyone was using that moment to launch things that I think even at the time we didn't think would have much longevity. So I was really cynical. And it was probably a good place to start, really kind of stress testing whether the people who had got this thing off the ground and created such an insane movement could actually follow it to the place that it was going to lead, could actually support this community over the long term.
Yeah.
And then I met the founders. And yeah, I think that was it.
Yeah. What was it about the founders that helped with that decision?
I am relentless in my pursuit of excellence, and probably my team would say too much. So
okay. We'll get to that.
And these people were just so impressive, so dogged in the belief that this was the thing that they were going to do, not because it was a moral imperative, not because it was the right thing to do, but because somebody had to do something. And I think this desire to stop talking and a bias towards action was the thing that kind of really pulled me in. And, it was an insane mission. Create 10,000 paid internship opportunities in just 5 years. I mean, no one had ever done anything like that in the UK. That impact at scale was completely new. And I wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah. Do you have any memories? I'm curious because, like you're saying, this is such a big goal. It's 10,000 in 5 years, right? Do you have any memories around like those early days of work? Like that first day going into the office, like with that pressure of you knew exactly what you needed to do. They had chosen you to do it and now you had to go off and do it.
I think that probably started in the interview process, or at least those are kind of, the interview process kind of almost felt like the beginning of work. It was this like really grueling kind of 3 months of meeting the founders, preparing presentations.
3 months.
It was 3 months. And, I remember them thinking, well, you didn't work in financial services. You don't have the same grounding or understanding of the world of work that we do. And at that point, I thought, no, I'm not smart like you, but I'm smart like me and I can do this job. And I think the thing that came out of that, I'm an ex-athlete, as some people know. And I remember my recruiter sitting me down and he said, look, I don't think that, this is your job. I don't think that you're the right person for this.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious because he had no idea that you were about to cement the job then because that was the motivation.
That was it. As soon as he said you can't have this job, I was like, the job is mine.
Tell any black woman that they can't have something and they will go and get it. There we go.
I said the job is mine. So I got the job and I was working really closely with Jonathan Sorrell, who's one of our co-founders, one of the original 4 and is now on our advisory board. And it was like a baptism of fire. I remember going to one of the first events and I got to the front desk and I was kind of like, oh, hi, introducing myself.
Timid.
Really?
Hi,
I don't
hi.
even know.
You just went, hi,
really
hi.
timid. I said, hi. And they said, and what internship are you here for? And I said, no, I'm the CEO. And from that moment, I think, I could hear my phone vibrating all the time, even when it was off. It was like doing 7 MBAs back to back. It was the most intense 6 months, I think, of my life. And really not understanding what kind of CEO I was going to be and stepping into the kind of shoes of, I guess, a myriad of performances that I thought looked like a CEO or talked like a CEO or felt like a CEO. And, I would wear like shirts and boots and now I'm wearing flip-flops.
Well, you found yourself now. You understand what kind of CEO you are. And like, I think that's so interesting because in my perspective, I believe there's a broad kind of misconception around what the public perceive a CEO to be, right? I believe CEOs are quite often villainized. I believe when they're protagonists and main characters on HBO shows, they are psychotic. So, without naming any shows, but what would you say is, what don't we know about you guys? What is a CEO? Like who are you?
I think that there's a real duality, especially to being what I would call an operational CEO. And so when you join a startup, you are building the plane whilst you're flying the plane.
Right.
And then at some point you need to kind of look 3-5 years into the future and decide where the plane is going to land and how you're going to get it there. And you're navigating all of these things that are on your, well, I'm really going to continue with this metaphor. You're navigating all of these things.
I've heard it before from my own former CEO. So yeah, you all have the same jargon.
It's very, very real. It's a very real metaphor. And I think, you know, in doing that, you have to stay, you know, doggedly connected to the mission and the place where you're going, but also make sure that, you know, each day, and someone asked me the other day, like, what does a normal day consist of? And I said, well, I wake up and then someone tells me something terrible. And then I open my emails and someone sends me an email saying urgent in all capital letters.
Yeah.
And then my day starts. I think the reality of being a CEO is that there are 7 things on fire at all times. And there's enough water to put out half of one of the fires.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
And the only thing that you do is you keep making decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you stop, that's when things break down.
Wow.
So you keep making decisions and you keep making decisions. And I guess what people don't know is that it requires a distance and a discipline that you learn to kind of keep yourself separate from the work in a way that allows you to keep doing that.
Mm.
And I guess what I mean by that is that, you know, I am so close to so many people's lives. I'm responsible for people's mortgages. I'm responsible for people's well-being. I'm responsible for the delivery of everything that our organization does. Ultimately, I have an incredible team around me of people who actually make that possible. But it is my job to be in charge. And, you know, if I stayed too connected to everything and everybody and everything that everyone was feeling, I would just cry all the time and not be able to do my work.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, that psychotic kind of cold villain role that we play, it's a necessary kind of space that you have to create in order to hold that level of responsibility.
That's so interesting. So like that momentum has to continue.
I think of myself. Do I think of myself? I think of the image of a shark and that idea that if they stop swimming, you know, they die.
Everyone the shark has gone after will come after them.
Okay, that's a different metaphor.
You mentioned responsibility just now. And being a CEO comes with enormous responsibility. It also comes with huge sacrifice as well.
Mm.
How do you move on a day-to-day basis with that weight on your shoulders?
You know, I think I'm someone who's over the course of my career become very comfortable with being uncomfortable. This job has taught me to change my risk appetite and risk tolerance. The things that kind of seemed like a problem 3 years ago, I barely even register anymore, which is quite amazing. I think one of the things I tell my team and I tell my interns and our alumni all the time is, first of all, just focus on doing your job really, really well before you think about the next place that you're going or what your organization can do for you.
Mm-hmm. So quite a present mindset, right? You
have to be. I think if you think too far into the future, it's just like, it's so overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
You know, thinking about this milestone, which we have been for the better part of the last 18 months. I was saying to one of my friends yesterday, like I just wake up kind of like bathed in sweat every morning. And then I have to recenter myself in the present and, you know, really think, okay, what am I going to do today? First, second, third. And that's the only way.
Yeah. A lot of your time as CEO is spent with different people, right? So you've got, on one hand, you've got the C-suites, you have the boardrooms, you have the trustees, you have the networking events and the politics and all of that stuff that needs to be taken care of. And that is very much your role and your role only, right? And then you've got kind of the people on the ground, the interns, the why, right? But I guess in between these two groups, there is just space. How do you deal with the gap that sits between the stuff that needs to be done and the people that you're doing all of this for? because I guess it can feel perhaps quite detached at times.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is the challenge of this job, and always has been, that we have a huge, huge number of stakeholders. And, I think because we face so many different sectors, I've been fortunate enough to see into so many different businesses right across the UK. And, I count CEOs of major companies as part of my network. I'm lucky enough to do that. And so sometimes I can go from being at number 10 to being at, an event at the Serpentine or at Bloomberg, and then to walking home from work and bumping into one of my interns on the street.
Oh my gosh, wow.
It happened yesterday. I was having coffee with a friend in Islington, and a young woman came up to me and said, "Are you the CEO of 10,000 Interns?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And we just had a chat. She talked to me about her job, about how the internship had created a drive and a belief in herself, of her own ability. And she told me about her sales targets for the graduate role that she has now. And, I think that there is a relentlessly human nature to what we're doing. And that's the thing that keeps me connected. It's actually one of our values, to be relentlessly human. It's very easy to kind of zoom out and think about those 10,000 people as just numbers, but they're all individuals. It's 10,000 lives, and it's easy to kind of stay connected to that part of the work because they are so vibrant and limitlessly talented. And because we're doing this at scale, they're also everywhere. So I see them all the time. 2 of our alumni are in my team and work with and for me now. So, we're very deliberate and intentional about how we create space and time to be connected with our community. Because I guess what people don't know about charities is that, it's really outsized business. Charities are 1% of UK GDP. We really are not making a lot of money, and yet we are supporting a huge number of communities, and we are filling gaps within, government provisions. And so, we work most of the time in a way that is probably more aligned with what people would expect from a corporate
100%
organization.
Yeah.
That is what we do.
Yeah.
And yet we've been fortunate enough to kind of interact with all of these people whose lives that we've changed.
Wow. And those moments, those interactions that you do have, those going back to those like human connections, right? When you do have them, like what happened yesterday, how do those moments of interaction, which to me as an outsider just sounds so precious, like how do they impact you when you actually get to sit down and on the very, I'm sure, odd or rare occasion, it sinks in that like, oh, this is very important, impactful work that we're doing? I would be crying. I know myself,
Oh God, I almost did. My father has always been such a big presence in my life, despite being absent for most of it and having passed away almost 10 years ago now. And he was a freedom fighter, and he believed that the function of freedom was to free others. And, I've decided to do this work in the UK, despite the fact that I'm half Kenyan. And I believe that, if we provide local solutions for local people, if we create this opportunity, if we hear these stories, if we are a custodian for these stories, we can have interventions in the global environment because these people will go out and make a difference in the world. That is how talented and special the people who go through our programs are. When I think about those individual interactions, I often think about my father, and he would always say, no one is waiting for you, keep going. And so it's, I think, a discipline for me not to sit with them too much because there is so much work still to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I guess it goes back again to that momentum, right? You need to just keep things ticking along.
Keep making decisions.
Keep making decisions. A lot of your interns have struggled with identity in the workplace, which I think is, unfortunately not too surprising when you consider, so many of the reasons that the foundation was founded, right? And you've spoken quite publicly about your identity as well in the past. Do you believe that identity and struggles with identity is something that ultimately kind of goes away with time? Or is it something that as Black people in Britain, you learn how to deal with, you learn how to manage, you learn how to navigate, regardless of how far you accelerate up the ladder?
I mean, like being mixed race is such a strange identity to occupy because I think we're told that we're on a journey to somewhere, right? And I don't think anyone's identity is fixed, especially not being Black British. We have such an incredible diaspora here. We have such an incredible, rich heritage of every different kind of iteration of Blackness. I mean, I always say Black people are not a monolith. There are so many different ways that we can be and see and experience the world. Identity in the workplace and in a workplace that is, predominantly a space within which we've been underrepresented, especially the corporate workplace that the Interns Foundation is facing. Navigating that it's a journey with no end, certainly. But I think it's one where the collective experience, the radical, beautiful, challenging, sometimes violent collective experience of being Black is one that we share because we wear it on our skin. And so for me, I feel so much less concerned with my identity through doing this job. I think it's really saved me from that constant introspection, that constant asking, who am I? And instead, I get to sit at these tables and be a voice for other people. And I guess more than anything, that feels like my identity now.
Yeah. Do you think that's something that you'll carry with you whenever your chapter at 10,000 kind of ends? Or is that something that has been very much molded and nurtured here and is part of this organization, and you'll have to then go off and reinvent yourself for the next chapter, whatever that may be?
I think reinvention and movement is such a natural part of who we are as people. I think that, this foundation and the way it's shaped me will stay with me for my whole life. It has been and is one of the greatest privileges of my life to lead this organization. I can't express what it's given to me. I really can't.
So anyone who's followed your career knows that you are extremely accomplished and you've got a very impressive track record. So let me just list a few things for those who don't know, right? So you were the first Black woman to swim for Team GB and to qualify for an Olympic Games. You produced and direct Breakfast in Kisumu, which went on to become a critically acclaimed documentary. You're also an award-winning author after releasing your first book, which was a memoir called These Heavy Black Bones, which is fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
You've been named on Forbes' 30 Under 30 lists. You also made Times Magazine's The Closers list last year, being named as one of 18 Black leaders working to end the racial wealth gap. So clearly there's a pattern here. Like, you do big things, you chase big things. What is it that makes you want to take on such monumental tasks? Because these aren't just kind of, rites of passage. These are big, life-changing moments, not just for you as an individual, but for others who are around you. Where does that endurance come from, and why do you just keep going with the next thing?
I mean, I think a lot about this question. Why the kind of relentless pursuit of hard things? Why running towards the fire always? Why flinging yourself off a cliff into the abyss?
When you don't have to.
No, I certainly don't have to. It feels like I do in some ways. I think that's probably part of my wiring. What can I say about my parents, who forged me in this way? my father was imprisoned during the apartheid, and he sacrificed a lot of his family life for what he believed in, the liberation of his people, the struggle against oppression and racial justice, humanity. I guess I was born with that belief kind of baked into me, and a level of sacrifice that he kind of normalized that probably isn't that normal.
Mm.
And my mum is everything. She is so strong, and she sacrificed so much for me to have the opportunities that I have. And she is relentless in the pursuit of giving everything to her children, and also changing her circumstances. My mom didn't grow up with very much, and neither did my father. And I think the strength that they gave me, and also the singularity of being the only child of these two people, of occupying this space of in-betweenness, my history of being an athlete, of believing that hard things are possible, of always pushing beyond the limits that exist. Someone has to go first, so why not me?
Mm-hmm. Why not you? Wow. It's that simple.
I guess I'm coming to terms with what this means for my life. How much of the last 31, that's how old I am, 31 years I've sacrificed for the pursuit of hard things. And my hope is hard things that, in some way will change the course of history, will have an impact on people far beyond me. And what is the cost to my relationships, to my life, to my health? Not insignificant. I guess I'm learning that I don't have to be the youngest, blackest, womanist person to ever do everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Amen to that.
And, I think always I will question whether I'm getting the balance right, but, I'm willing and able, so on we go.
Do you think you'll ever have a time that feels perhaps more permanent, where you don't really want to do hard things anymore? Or is that something that, as you've met other CEOs and that's a pattern you've picked up, a similarity, a commonality between you all? You pursue hard things and perhaps you don't know how to not pursue hard things.
I think that there is some responsibility that we have to each other. Not everyone can do everything. Not everyone wants to do everything. And not everyone is able. Like that's not what equity is about. It is about the kind of appropriate distribution of opportunity. Everybody has something to offer. And, in some ways I don't, that's just the way I think about it. I don't think of myself as being, specially chosen to do this job, but this is what I have to offer.
So let's move on to the internships, right? I would love to know from you, you can read as much as you want online. There are all these articles about the amazing work the foundation's done. You can even go to the website as well, but just kind of from your own words, your personal perspective, why do you think internships and access to internships are so important?
So, I think people talk a lot about success and meritocracy, especially in this country. And what that means ultimately when people say it is that if you're talented and you work hard, you will be successful.
Right.
And the thing that people don't price in is the secret third ingredient, which is, call it whatever you want, investment, upbringing, but really it's about opportunity. And, ultimately what that means in really practical terms is, we're lucky enough in this country to have an education system that supports numerous people from lots of socioeconomic backgrounds access to tertiary education. However, not every experience is created equal, right? So you go to university and you come from a, background where your parents have already also been to university, and you write a CV, and your father works for a big bank and he checks it for you, and he tells you to have a look at the website and make sure that you know the company's values.
There's this like instant familiarity, right?
Completely, right? And I could go on and on and on describing this scenario, but then you have another person, you know, and for example, they are a carer for their sibling, or they're sending money back home to Africa, or, you know, they just don't feel like they belong in that space for whatever reason. You know, we can be Black and middle class as well.
Right. Yeah, of course.
There are so many reasons why Black people are underrepresented in the corporate workspace, but it starts at that first access and entry point. Not enough people are getting through the door because not enough people have the investment and opportunity to do so. And so internships, I think are the great equalizer. One of the things that our impact report showed last year, which was hugely vindicating, was that organizations would rank our talent as less good than their traditional talent at the point of interview.
Really?
And this was all to do with soft skills, right? So this was about spelling mistakes on CVs. This was about eye contact, what people wore, how they spoke.
And where do we learn those skills?
Exactly.
You don't know what they are, or, you know.
If you've never had any exposure to people who could tell you how to do that, how would you possibly know what those things should be or what was expected of you? But at the end of internship, our interns were marked as good, if not better, than traditional talent.
Wow.
So that 6-week exposure to industry, that 6-week opportunity to show someone that you are hungry, you are talented, you are competent, you are smart. No one knows anything when they go into their first job. That's not the point, you know. It's about learning and engaging and, you know, understanding what this new chapter of your life will be, the world of work. And an internship is the best way to start on that journey, because perversely you need opportunity to get opportunity.
Of course.
And once you have that internship on your CV, your world is so much bigger.
Those doors just fling open.
That's the point.
So as we progress with the series, alumni and interns have spoken about how the foundation has positively changed their life, right? And how they have learned so many things from the foundation, from the trustees, the co-founders, yourself as CEO. To throw that question back to you, what have you learned from your interns?
Oh my gosh. That's such a good question. I mean, I remember being at university, barely. I remember being at university. And I don't remember having that level of kind of resilience. I don't, you know, I'm so inspired is not a strong enough word, but I look at the state of the world that they're inheriting from us. And I think about, especially this year, the legislation that's come out of the new US administration, the backlash against D&I, the pendulum swing towards a world that feels more fractured and divided, humanity that is being eroded through war. And there is this moment every year where we do the pre-application kind of opening training. And it's this big session online, which all of the applicants join.
Wow.
And some of them have applied the year before. Some of them are first-time appliers, and we get our alumni to present on these sessions. And when I look at the chat, none of it is about the interns themselves or their degrees or what they want. It is all them talking to each other and saying, you know, we're going to get it this year. You can do it. I can do it. We're going to do it this year. And we say, always as an organization, we say lift as you climb. And that if you get through the door, it's your job to hold it open. And I think my interns have not only taught me that, they've shown me how real that is and how much they want it, not just for themselves, but for each other.
That's beautiful. You mentioned before that when you were an intern, you were kind of comparing your experience versus the experiences of those current interns, the world that they're inheriting. I couldn't help but notice kind of how impressive and ambitious these young interns are, and just how young they are as well. How different do you think your life could have been had you had access to an organization like 10,000 Interns when you were at that age, when you were in those really formative years in university?
It's so interesting to think about what my life over the last 10 years could have been like if I'd had a larger Black community. You know, I grew up in an expat world in Kenya, very white world, despite the fact that I was in Africa, in a predominantly Black country.
Yeah.
And then I went to Oxford University, and I was the only Black person in my year in my subject.
Wow.
And so when I did an internship, actually. I did an internship my second year over summer. So we were just given a list of organizations, and we were told to pick one. This was by my faculty. And I picked the only one I knew. And I went to this internship. It was unpaid. I could, barely even afford to cover my travel and lunch with a stipend.
Oh my gosh.
My family didn't live in London. I didn't have any network or connections, and I was also the only Black person in the office. And I remember asking one of the women that worked there, how do I get a job here? And she said, well, either you have to know someone who knows the owner of this organization, or you have to wait until someone dies.
Oh my goodness.
And she was joking, of course, tongue in cheek.
But she also
wasn't joking. She also wasn't joking. And I think, for me, it's not just about the opportunity. I think that it's really easy for someone like myself who's achieved a lot to say, well, I did it and so everyone else can, you can just,
right.
The cult of exceptionalism has never helped anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I've been successful. Yes, I've worked hard, but I've also had a hell of a lot of access to opportunity. I really have. My parents sacrificed a lot for me to be where I am. And I've also been fortunate enough to have a great education. So for me, it's not so much about the opportunity, but if I'd had access to the 10,000 interns, I would have had community. And that, I think, would have made so much difference. I can't even express how much difference that would have made to my life.
Yeah. Are you satisfied with the work that you've achieved as CEO at 10,000? Are you happy with what you've created, what you've contributed towards, whether it is, broadening the internships across sectors, whether it's kind of helping build that community of interns and alumni, whether it's recruit the team, the board of trustees? Is there something that sits in your mind where you think, I need to do that? That my work isn't done?
I'm never satisfied. I think, beyond delivering the program for the last couple of years, I've also built this business, and I feel able to say that and kind of own it with a huge number of people who've helped me along the way and who've been a part of that. The co-founders, obviously, who laid the platform for this to happen, but I have built this business. And my background is in brand, in comms, and so a lot of building the brand of the 10,000 Interns Foundation has been the work that's happened alongside the delivery of all of these internships. And so, with the concurrent, there's just like 1,000 things happening all the time, all at once. And everything could be better. I mean, I think about that all the time. But excellence can't live everywhere in your business. And you have to make decisions about where it does live and when and why it's important. And I think the thing that I'm probably most satisfied with has been my growth as a leader, as a person who can be compassionate without breaking down, that can be demanding and exacting without, expecting excellence everywhere, that can deliver against objectives but not compromise, everybody's kind of well-being in the process. And that's a constant negotiation. It's it's a level of compromise I didn't think myself capable of, given the person I know myself to be.
Okay.
Just inherently uncompromising.
Stubborn.
It's very, very, very stubborn, relentless. And this job has taught me how to be different, which I think is, it's everything.
Yeah, it is. Being different is probably one of the most important things and one of the most important lessons that we may get taught and told, but it's difficult to figure that out for yourself.
And change doesn't come easy. I think for the most part, we are who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we ask of our organizations, and one of the reasons that we exist, is to demand that the workplace keeps questioning itself and keeps asking, how much difference can my business tolerate? Not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it's inherently the best thing to do for your organization, to have that diversity of voice around the table, to solve problems from different perspectives. And I've seen firsthand examples of businesses failing or running into PR or reputational or financial risk because they have not had the right people seated around the table. Yeah. And it's a diversity issue.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the things my organization does well, because we demand that we do it well, is we're constantly asking ourselves, how much difference can we tolerate as a business? And how can we build a team of people and allow them to be themselves, accept that people are who they are, but also build a culture that connects us all, and that we feel, that we feel we are one team. However, we're a team of individuals.
Mm-hmm. I think that's amazing that you're holding yourselves to account very often, very regularly. That's what it sounds like.
Oh God, if we don't do it, how can we ask other people to, right? I think it is imperative that we as an organization set an example of what a workplace can look like and what it can be.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that, with our shoestring charity budget at against all odds and whilst helping everybody else. But it's really important that we do. And I think charities need to make sure that they are also walking the walk.
So you've hit the milestone, 10,000 internship opportunities. What comes after the 10,000? I guess that's the big $1 million question.
It is the 10,000 question. What comes after 10,000? More internships, of course. But I think as an organization, we're thinking very seriously about how we follow people on that journey that we've set them on. So if you think about diversity, inclusion, and equity as being a journey, when we open the doors with the internships, we're meeting the diversity part of that journey. We're allowing more people into a space that is underrepresenting them inherently.
Yeah.
Once we've opened the doors, we need to ensure that that culture includes them in ways that are meaningful so that they can stay on that journey.
Right.
That's the inclusion piece. And that's the next part of our journey as the 10,000 Interns Foundation. We need to follow our alumni, these 10,000 talented people, to future leadership. And so we'll be launching a new program after the milestone events to meet that mission, which you will hear more about in the coming weeks and months. And then the other piece for us is about the unique data set that we've collected. We've built the fastest growing pipeline of Black talent in the UK over the last 5 years. And we also have the largest data set of its kind. And so we want to start asking questions of that data set, allowing it to meet government data and becoming advocates in policy and politics, all with the mission of changing the workforce for Black talent. Because ultimately the end goal of that journey is equity, right?
Of course.
And that will happen once we have a more diverse workforce, which is better included, and policies that support them along the way.
Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure having you and speaking to the interns, speaking to the alumni, the trustees. The charity is clearly changing lives, and it's been amazing getting to know more about it. So thank you.
We're so happy to be here, and I hope that everyone is left with the belief that we have that talent is the only thing that's equally distributed and we are all responsible for nurturing it.
I love that. That is so PR'd. So good. If you like what you've heard in today's episode or any of the episodes over the last series, and if you want to support the charity, whether that's through donations, whether that's through partnerships, if you're someone who wants to apply for an intern, you can always get in touch. You can follow the 10,000 Interns Foundation on LinkedIn and on Instagram. And of course, you can always visit their website, which is www.10,000internsfoundation.com. Thank you so much for coming on this journey and for celebrating the 10,000 mark. It's been an absolute privilege being your host. And until next time, we'll see you soon.